go.
All right, everybody, welcome to Teaching Crypto. Back to a two-man show today with MrFOMO and myself, AZcrypto. Thanks for joining us. If you haven't done so already, please hit that like and most importantly, hit that subscribe button as we try to push forward, try to make a big climb this summer. And more shows are coming at you, but we had to do a Voyager show today. Other shows planned, but we had to stick with Voyager. MrFOMO, I had a chance to speak with the plan administrator for over an hour today, and I know you tried to contact him as well. It was not him, but a lawyer on his team. And we had a long talk, and I have some information, some good news, some shaky news, but definitely some things that, thanks for joining us, everybody, that I want to share. So, MrFOMO, first thing I want to talk about is the percentage coming back, because if you guys have been following our program, you know that there's been an amendment to the plan, and MrFOMO, what they announced, what freaked people out, is unsecured tokens would not be distributed right away, possibly because they're seeking a judge's approval. It gets complicated. I went on a rant yesterday, even though the judge has already approved on this. So what were your thoughts when you heard that?
Why are they seeking a judge's approval? What's the idea behind that? It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and I asked that, and I was told consistently that they had to do it. It was a legal procedure that had to be done because of the landscape of the crypto market, is what he kind of said. And I asked him, well, how is this going to affect recovery? That's the most important thing, initial recovery. And he insisted to me, and he even asked one of the other people working on the team while we were on the phone, that it shouldn't affect the 35.7 very much. Now, I was concerned because I did a follow-up. Are these only the tokens that the SEC has mentioned? Are all these unsecured? Remember the ones also that are not being able to be transferred out of Voyager as well. He said all unsecured tokens. So that led me to believe that it had to be, something that would lower our percentage back. But he insisted
it would have to be a significant amount, right? It makes no sense if it's not a significant amount. What was the percentage that he thought that this would affect?
He said very minuscule. He's adamant that the 35.7 is going to be very close to what it is. Now, we'll see if that's true or not. We're going to look. The other important thing
of the day.
They need to, yeah. The other thing, and I told him
the Department of Redundancy Department.
Listen, he was very nice to talk to me for over an hour, but I was insistent that this didn't need to happen. He said, we appreciate your legal perspective, but basically they disagree with me and a lot of you. Now, here's the thing you need to understand that he said, the hope is, the plan is, this is the last hearing before distribution. So as you know, the app is going to come down very soon, maybe as early as tonight, and be off for several days. And the idea is when the app pops up, they're ready to go, okay? And this June 6th, supposedly, they're going to be very aggressive afterwards. Now, what the judge tells them, I'm hoping the judge is going to say, listen, I already approved all this. You don't need to keep coming back here. You can give the customers back USDC for these unsecured tokens. The SEC has never labeled these securities. That's the point I was trying to make to him. I reiterated what I said. He kept on saying, I appreciate your legal perspective, but here's what we're going to do. Okay.
That's a frustrating point to me, because why are these lawyers constantly worried about laws that don't yet exist on the books? He's talking about the SEC could possibly list these things as securities one day. What does that matter? You're giving us back USDC.
Well, he didn't say that, but that was basically the landscape of crypto and what has been said. You can kind of read between the lines. Yes, it's unnecessary. We all know it. It's not a legal perspective. There's no law saying that Algorand is a security. I know that.
Right. So why would the SEC be able to reach back and then punish whoever, Kirkland and Ellis?
It doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense.
It doesn't make any sense. The bottom line is they've done this. Paul Hague decided to make the changes, and once he decided to change the plan, there had to be a hearing. So that was it. And the hearing is on the 6th. Now, they do hope to get clarification on those unsecured tokens and then move forward. So that's the good news. So, if the app is ready on the 6th and the judge says, you don't need my approval again, I've already given you approval, yes, go ahead. It is possible that on June 7th, you could have access to the app, but nothing is a guarantee, guys. Guys, look, listen, he was a nice guy on the phone to me, but the way things have happened over the 11 months, never celebrate anything. There's a lot of other things I want to discuss, but he was adamant that we're still getting back 35.7.
So he didn't think it was a significant percentage. What was the percentage he thought it was? I don't know if you answered that.
He doesn't have that percentage.
He doesn't.
He doesn't have that percentage.
He couldn't give you a dollar amount or anything.
No. And the other question I asked, I said, listen, FTX Alameda, worst case scenario, we lose that case. What's the best we can do if there are no third-party clawbacks? He would not hand me a percentage. He said, well, you can kind of do the math. And I said, well, why don't you kind of give us a clear idea? He would not hand me a percentage on that either. So that he assured me, though, that they've done their research on these third parties already, that they're not starting from scratch. That was my concern. I said, listen, this has been going on for 11 months. Shouldn't you already know who you're going after? And if you're going to do it, you don't need to wait for FTX Alameda to complete. He did, unfortunately, this is the bad news. Mediation is going on. They're not going to give an update on mediation until there is an update, whether it's good or bad. Now, he did acknowledge that if there is a trial, it could take several months. So what I fired back to him is said, please tell me you're not going to wait for FTX Alameda to try to go after third parties. You're going to go after third parties. If you're going to go after third parties, you could be doing it at the same time. And he acknowledged, yes, that is the plan. So I liked hearing that. If that is indeed true, that if there are going to be third-party clawback attempts, they're going to happen while FTX and Alameda is still undecided, right? That'll save a lot of time. But my other thing that I really talked about is communication. I invited both of these gentlemen on the show. He said he would speak to Paul and get back to us. I said, listen, it's going to be professional. We're going to ask some real questions. We have a lot of people hurting. I told him a lot about our listeners and our viewers and the things they've struggled with. And I brought up some things also that, he said that he would take back to Paul. And I'll give you an example. I mentioned Steve. I said, listen, out of the 3 companies that went bankrupt, Steve is the only one that's still taking full salary. It's been happening 11 months. He's made anywhere between $400,000 and $500,000. Is he going to continue to make his full salary for this thing if it keeps going for 2 years? And he said, well, that's something we can bring up to Paul and the judge. So that tells me, Mr. FOMO, read between the lines, they haven't done it yet. And I said, why not do it? That's a topic
that hasn't been broached in that room. They've never even come across.
Why not do it? Why not do it? Here's the thing. I understand that 20 million is 1% recovery and 500,000 not a lot of money, but we'll take anything we can get at this point. And why should Steve keep getting a full salary when he isn't doing anything? Everyone claims he's not part of the process anymore. He's not the one rebalancing these tokens. He's not going into the wallets. He was incapable of doing that. You wouldn't want him touching any of this stuff.
He is a lame duck leader. He's the only leader in crypto that has led his company through bankruptcy. Even Sam Bankman-Fried resigned.
Sam Bankman's getting sued by FTX. Even as horrible of a human being as Alex Mashinsky is, he resigned. And a lot of it was pressure from the creditors, right? They're saying, how is this guy? So he runs the company into bankruptcy. 11 months later, he's still taking full salary. I said, listen, we need to ask for that salary back as part of the estate, or at the very least, cut him off. And he said he would mention that to Paul. It kind of tells me that, they haven't really discussed it. So this is good things that we're talking, I guess. I mean, I wish they were.
I have a feeling I'll mention it to Paul means absolutely nothing. You know what I mean? I have a feeling that kind of a thing. Maybe because he's. Maybe they have talked about it and they've said we're not going after him.
Well, you can at least at least ask the judge.
He's been basically protected through this whole process. You know what I mean?
We're going to talk about the fee examiner. we're going to talk about another thing happened after my phone call. The fee examiner report came out, and that's going to be a separate hearing on June 14th. And we're going to talk about there's over $27.5 million that the fee examiner thinks should be returned. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
You're talking about over 1% in recovery.
Yeah.
That was taken by whom? Who took that money?
Law firm.
Law firm.
Not just this one, but other.
The fee examiner, who normally examines law firms, said this law firm is over by about 27.5, which means probably that's
not this one, not this one.
Estimate.
It wasn't, but it wasn't just Kirkland and Ellis. It was a huge. And I'll share we'll share in a little bit that screen. You can kind of see. Yeah, Steve should not be getting paid, and he talked about we're gonna see how much really they need to operate, basically salary wise. Steve does not need to be making over $40,000 a month at all, or getting any type of bonuses. Right, that needs to stop now. It would be a travesty if the wind down ended up lasting another 2 years and Steve collected under $800,000, while people here, the average person is sitting there waiting for their funds back, hasn't gotten anything for 11 months.
Well, I mean, think about the banks that went bankrupt, the real banks that went bankrupt just recently. Those were tied up inside of a month, were they not? I mean, they obviously had people who were buyers, right? But those things were tied up inside of a month. This has stretched out over a year. So even if those CEOs stayed on board, they'd still be out of a job already. And Steve has sat on this for over 12 months. That's out of control.
Yeah, it is out of control. So hopefully they do something about it. Now, as far as how long this could take, guys, it could take a while, because he said, if you go after a third party, it could take a while. So I kind of pushed back and I said, if you're going to do it, have those decisions made now. It's been 11 months. You should know who you can go after and who you can't. Well, and he fought back and said, well, what if we could get recovery? And I said, but if it takes months and months and months and you can't make 1% recovery and there's 100 million sitting in the war chest, give us back the 100 million. That's 5% versus waiting on something 6 months, 8 months, 10 months from now that may never happen. And he acknowledged that they're going to, look at time and look at all these. Listen, he said some right things, but until we get some initial recovery, and we're going to hold him to this 35.7%. Even if it goes down to 34%, that's not what they told me or other people that have called on the show. So that's a huge red flag right there, right?
So did he give you a worst case scenario?
No. And I specifically said, let's say we get the 35.7 next, well, it's probably not going to be June 7th, June whatever. Let's throw out a date, June 12th, okay? And an Alameda FTX doesn't work, and there are no third-party clawbacks. How much can we accept? Because, some of those war chest money are going to still go to lawyers. He wouldn't give me a number. He said you'd have to kind of do the math. So that was that's what I would like to know. I would like to know, all right, we get the 35.7. Let's take their word for it for now. And then FTX Alameda doesn't work, which is a possibility, guys. Then how much are we getting back? Is it 40? Is it 42, 43? He really wouldn't give me a number. And I think the problem here is, of course it's a joke, Jeremy, and the whole thing is a joke. The problem here is they don't know how much money they're going to take up of that war chest for lawyer fees. They can't tell us, right? Now, the other thing about communication, my recommendation, number one, Paul needs to speak. If he doesn't want to come on the show, so be it. But Paul, you need to come on shows like this. You've got an enormous responsibility on your shoulders. I said
there needs to be regular communication.
At the very least, there should be weekly and bi-weekly Twitter spaces, or he can at least release statements, emails, constant communication. I said we have felt unrepresented from the beginning. I said whether you guys see it that way or not, I'm telling you how we feel, and that's important. I said we need better communication. And my example was the Stretto document that just dropped Saturday night without any warning about there being a new hearing and these unsupported tokens. So listen, it was a long hour, some good information. I liked hearing about the 35.7. I like the fact that they've supposedly made decisions already about third-party clawbacks. So if there's going to be third-party clawbacks, his point was as soon as this initial distribution is made, they're going to move on to the next steps. So according to him, they'll be focused on FTX Alameda and third-party clawbacks after this initial distribution. And then things should go quicker. However, if they do go after third parties, obviously that's a significant delay. Now, he brought up 3AC. I did not bring it up. And I said, wait a minute, 3AC, because we talked about how long the wind down. I said, my concern is this could be 2 years. You're withholding $100 million of a war chest that could go to creditors. He brought up 3AC. I said, wait a minute, 3AC, that's not a United States bankruptcy. And that could be very little money that could take years and years. And aren't you feeling like that could be a huge waste of time? His response was basically no comment.
This guy sounds like he's going to run for office one day. I mean, with the sort of, the sort of double talk that he's given you, and the no comments. I mean, he's almost pleading the fifth on this already.
Listen, he did stay on the phone for an hour. He took all my questions.
He took them all. He didn't answer them all.
He took them all. There were some lawyers speak. He tried to be as open as he could. He said, a lot of things you hear are not true. I said, well, that's great. You guys need to then communicate that with us. That's the point. If there are mistruths on Twitter about the process, you guys need to tell us. And you need to be specific about what's true and what's not.
And so did you sort of press him on that? Did you say, hey, can you tell me what?
Oh, yeah. I said the communication is not where it is. And that's why people are frustrated and angry and concerned. And I mentioned to him, listen, a lot of our viewers have very significant money and funds and
people were using this money to build communities. I mean, this is no joke. These people's funds were significant.
I spoke to someone online a few days ago that hasn't been able to pay their college tuition because of it. I mean, this is insane stuff. This is not small things, right? This is not someone canceling a luxury vacation. This is everyday people that made investments thinking they were bettering themselves and their family that have been stuck for 11 months on different levels, right? And so hopefully, when are we getting it back? Well, supposedly after the 6th, you're getting 35.7% back next level. That's what I was told today. We're going to hold him to that.
We'll hold him to that, but let's stop getting our hopes up that
I'm not guaranteeing anything.
Like it's cemented.
I'm not guaranteeing anything.
How many times have they stepped over? For God's sakes, back in April, they said if the deal doesn't go through with Binance, then by mid-May we're giving everybody their stuff back. There's a deadline. If they don't meet it, then it's a liquidation process, and you toggle, and everybody gets their stuff back. Okay. And here we are in June, and we still don't know. So we're not going to say anything cemented for the court system anymore.
Jason asked about
ridiculously. They keep setting the goalposts up and then moving them back on their own.
Jason asked about FTX Alameda, so I'm going to go over that. That's important. Number one, they are definitely in mediation. Can't talk about mediation. He's optimistic. He said that. He gave that impression to me. If there is a trial, he said the pre-trial date of June 27th is not for sure, 100%. It's not a given that that's going to happen, even though he acknowledged that that's been reported. Now, if there is a trial, it could take months. He did confirm that. But as that is going on, we can still be getting some distribution back from other revenues if there are third-party clawbacks. So this is important for everyone to understand. As Alameda FTX is being resolved, so if mediation isn't a success, yes, it goes to court. It could take months and months. It's not going to happen over a couple weeks. He acknowledged it could be several months, whether that's 2, 3, or 4, who knows, right? As that's happening, they have made a determination, and if they are going after third parties, it would be done then. It wouldn't be done, according to him, after FTX Alameda, meaning they're not going to be put on hold. They're going to be working on this as FTX Alameda. One part of the team is going to be working on FTX Alameda. Another part is going to be working on possibly securing more money. And if they can't, they won't do it. My concern is the 3AC. When he said no comment, I said, listen, Mike, 3AC is not in the United States. It's a very, very time. I mean, it could be 5 years, for God's sake. You can't keep this thing open for 5 years just to try to get back $2 or $3 million and have this big war chest. And
that war chest is, and how much is that war chest again?
Over $100 million.
Over $100 million. $100 million equals 5%.
Yeah.
To the creditors, right? And so if you go after 3AC with the hopes of getting back something, that something better be significant. Otherwise, you've wasted 5% to get back.
I mean, every time 3AC's assets get liquidated, they're pennies on the dollar, right? Their NFT art was $2 million, but you spread that out over many creditors, and ends up being pennies. And to us, it's not even remotely close to even half of 1% that we from these. I really think 3AC is a pipe dream.
Sell the super yacht.
I really think 3AC is a pipe dream. I don't think we're going to see 20 million from them. I really don't. I don't think they have the money.
And so you're talking about trading 5% for 1% in the end. I mean, really, if you just looking at those ballpark numbers that we just threw out, we're paying out 5%.
He did say they would make good decisions based on whether it was worth the squeeze.
Oh, well, thank God.
You
can trust us to make good decisions now.
Well, here's the thing: we have no choice. Unless you want to organize unless you want to organize a get together in Detroit, Mr. FOMO. This is what we've got right now. That's where the law firm is based from, right? I didn't get into Jason Resnick and the relationship with his brother and all that stuff. We didn't have time for that. But I mean, there's a lot. Look,
sure
I would like to have him on the show to take some more questions. Can I ask for Paul to get on the show to take more questions? And we'd love to have that.
I would love to speak to Paul, right? So he seems to be the one that this guy's got to check with, right? Everything that you said about Steve, I'll talk to Paul about it. Anytime you made a good point, well, I'll speak to Paul about that. So Paul seems to be the one that has the.
He's the administrator. He should. Right. And my point was, Paul should take a leadership role, get on channels like this, teaching crypto, one of the few channels that has been sticking with the customers in fact, probably the only one that has done regular programming since this has happened. He needs to do a Twitter space. I'll do a Twitter space with him. We'll have him on this show. It doesn't matter. Listen, I'm not going to start dropping F-bombs at the guy and threaten him. That doesn't get anything resolved. Right?
I make no promise.
I want to have a real conversation. I want people to get as much back as they can, as quickly as they can. And even though that's what they've said they've wanted, it just hasn't been the case. Mr. FOMO, really quickly, I wanted to talk about the fee examiner, and I wanted to break down what kind of they're asking for, because this is going to be a separate hearing here on the 14th, right, of June. And so if you take a look here, the final number the fee examiner is recommending is $27,591,465.28. And you see the breakdown here, right? Between Kirkland and Ellis, between all these different law firms, this is kind of it, right? That really we've been overcharged. And that's kind of what
by 1% per customer, right?
Yeah. But that is a lot of money. That could help.
A huge amount.
Helps. That 27, I'll take that. Thank you.
I'll take that, but again, my understanding of how this works, and
it's not a guarantee.
My view from this seat has been that's probably pretty conservative. Like, they've probably overcharged us by way more than 27 million, and so I would estimate that there's probably 3% at least in there that they've overcharged us for, if not more.
Yeah, and the only thing we can do is hope the judge takes this very seriously on the 14th, looks it over, and makes an educated decision for the creditors. I mean, if you read it over, it's a long document. We're not going to go over every single amount, but it's very specific, very reasonable. how this fee examiner came to be. And originally there was no fee examiner. It's actually one of the debtors that pushed for there to be one. The UCC didn't get a fee examiner. It was one of the debtors like us that pushed, who didn't actually have that much money on the platform. It was a female that did that. I don't have her name in front of me, but this is not the UCC's. This is not the UCC's work. This is one of the creditors that pushed. We should have a fee examiner, and people laughed. And look at this, 27.5 million. And let's see, there's a hearing. Now, this hearing should not affect distribution. This is not a, hey, I'm contesting anything. But we got to draw this to a close here because, lots going on in our lives too. But Mr. FOMO, it was nice having you back.
Well, yeah, it's good to be back.
Viewers, we got some exciting shows coming up, daily shows as we push towards, hopefully, we're going to be ambitious, try to get to 1,000 subs as soon as we can. Thanks for you guys to get us over 500. But if you haven't hit that like or subscribe button, please do so. Mr. FOMO, they're going to be hearing a lot of you soon, right?
That's right. Starting tomorrow, we're going to be back at it.
Yeah. And check out, if you haven't done so, Mr. FOMO's introduction to Bitcoin. Share with anyone that's new or hasn't been in the space, or maybe have been in the space. Take a look at it. For Mr. FOMO, this is AZcrypto. Thank you, guys. Have a great night. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Take it easy.
See you.